School has always been a place where parents assume that their children will be safe. Well, I should say at least used to be safe. Recently, it seems like not a day goes by without a school-related tragedy being on the news. However, in 2010, that wasn't really as common, and the Horman family of Portland, Oregon wouldn't have given their son Kyron's safety at his school a second thought. One afternoon, his parents eagerly awaited at the bus stop to hear all about the science fair and the talent show that had taken place earlier that day at school. Unfortunately, their joy quickly turned to worry when little Kyron failed to get off of the bus. And then their worry turned to horror when they found out that he had been marked as absent the entire day. This didn't make any sense because his stepmom dropped him off at school herself earlier that morning. The police felt behind when they first started their search because the little boy had been unaccounted for nearly 7 hours already. Parents in the community wanted to know how a second grader could just vanish from school without anyone noticing, and everyone would begin trying to help figure out what happened to Kyron Horman. Hey guys, my name is Elise. This is 10 to Life. Let's dive right in. Newlyweds Kaine and Desiree Horman were just starting the beginning of the rest of their lives together, living in Portland, Oregon. They seemed like the perfect couple. Kaine was a software engineer at Intel, and Desiree was an accountant with one son from a previous marriage. It was said that Kaine was an amazing father figure to her son, and really great with kids in general. After 2 years, having their first child together seemed like the natural next step in their marriage. However, even though their marriage was relatively new, it started struggling when Kaine's best friend called Desiree and told her that Kaine had been cheating on her. I guess he felt like it was Desiree's right to know and felt like he had to break the news to her since Kaine clearly wasn't going to be the one to tell her. This was something that Desiree knew she would never be able to get over. But right before she was going to file for a divorce, she found out that she was pregnant. The couple decided to try to work it out and do their best to remain a family. This would prove to be easier said than done, and their marriage was never able to get back to the happy place that it once was. Desiree filed for divorce at 8 months pregnant, but instead of citing infidelity as the reason, they wrote that they had irreconcilable differences. You can imagine how difficult going through a divorce must have been during this time, and how sad that she must have felt that her picture-perfect family that she envisioned wasn't going to work out. Even though they were separated, Kaine was by Desiree's side when she gave birth to their son, Kyron Richard Horman. This was on September 9th, 2002. Almost immediately after Kyron was born, a woman by the name of Terri and her young son, James, moved into the home that Desiree and Kaine had bought together. Desiree was now living in a condo close by with her older son and baby Kyron. The divorce wasn't even finalized, and she felt like Terri must have been that woman that Kaine had been cheating on her with, since she moved into their family home so quickly. It's not that hard to see why Desiree started to develop feelings of resentment and even hatred towards Terri, who she believed was the catalyst for her marriage ending and was now living in the home that she had planned to raise her family in. However, even though Terri and Kaine met at a restaurant in June of 2002, that year, they were adamant that their relationship didn't start until after Kaine and Desiree were officially separated. During the first couple years of Kyron's life, Desiree had primary custody of him, with Kaine having him for a few hours in the afternoons. She had no choice but to accept the fact that Terri was now going to be a permanent fixture in Kyron's life, whether she liked it or not. However, 2 years after Kyron was born in 2004, all of the family dynamics would change when Desiree became very ill. It hasn't been disclosed what the exact medication was, but Desiree had said that a non-FDA approved drug caused her to have kidney failure. This was really serious, and she said that the medical care that she was receiving in the United States was only throwing more and more prescriptions at the problem. So she traveled to Canada, which isn't far from Oregon, and she did this to get another doctor's opinion. And a doctor there told her that he would try to find the root cause of her illness rather than just treating the symptoms that she was having. Desiree felt like she needed to get treatment from this specific doctor and decided that it would be best for her to temporarily move to Canada. Due to her illness, she had to make the decision to then give primary custody to the fathers of her 2 sons. She felt that it was understood that when she was better and returned to Oregon, that she would resume raising her sons full-time. Even though she despised Terri, the new woman in Kaine's life and the new mother figure to her son Kyron, she trusted her to help care for her son. Terri was previously a school teacher and really good with children, so Desiree felt like Kyron would be in good hands with her. Terri Moulton had always wanted to be a teacher. She was born in California in March 1970, but was quickly given up for adoption by her birth mother. The adoption was closed, and Terri never knew her birth family, but she was adopted by 2 school teachers, Larry and Carol Moulton. In 1982, the Moultons moved to Roseburg, Oregon, where Terri would grow up as an only child. She excelled in sports, such as basketball and track, and was even a contender for the state track championships her senior year of high school. After high school, Terri met her first husband, Ron Tarver, in 1991, and the 2 of them operated a restaurant together. They desperately wanted a baby, and it took 3 years for her to get pregnant with their first child, James. Only a year later, the couple, though, began fighting and accusing each other of infidelity, and ultimately ended up getting divorced. After the divorce, Terri and James moved back in with her parents, and she began attending a McDonald's fast food chain management school. In 1996, she rekindled a relationship with a former high school sweetheart named Richard Ecker, and the 2 of them ended up marrying that same year. Her new husband, Richard, ended up adopting her son James with her first husband, Ron's consent, who was apparently struggling financially at the time. Richard was said to have been a great provider for Terri and her son, and he even paid for her to attend college, where she graduated with a bachelor's degree in elementary school education. Terri held several teaching jobs in the early 2000s and was said to be a great mother and just amazing with children. Many people described James as the center of her life and said that she was one of the most devoted mothers that they had ever seen. However, her second marriage started to struggle, with Richard thinking that Terri was too controlling and only using him for his money. After 6 years of marriage, Terri would have her second divorce and again be given primary custody of James. After the divorce, her teaching contract ended, and Terri decided to start a new, healthy lifestyle and working out at a gym while she had extra time between her jobs. It was that same year that she met Kyron Horman at a restaurant while she was out with some friends. They both had a lot in common at the time, such as being really into fitness and spending a lot of time at the gym. Like I said earlier, Desiree believes that Kaine and Terri began dating soon after they met, and while she and Kaine were still married. But he has always said that it wasn't until after they were separated that he and Terri became intimate. After Kaine and Desiree separated for good, Terri moved in with Kaine and began helping care for his newborn, Kyron, during his visitation time. This was really helpful due to Kaine's busy work schedule. Her son James was happy to finally have a stable household, and now a little brother who he became very close with as well. Terri began teaching Kyron sign language when he was only 8 months old. She had learned to sign due to being partially deaf in one ear, and also to help some of her special needs students. It was during this time that Terri realized that Kyron couldn't see very well and discovered that he needed glasses. Kaine was impressed by her willingness to help his son. He said she was extremely patient and understanding with children, and she actually ended up going back to school for her master's in education to hopefully have a better chance of getting a new teaching job. However, even with a master's, Terri wasn't able to find a permanent teaching job right away, and she became sort of an on-call teacher and substitute teacher during this time. When Desiree became ill and needed to move to Canada, Terri had a lot of time to devote to Kyron. She was said to become his primary caretaker and began loving and viewing him as one of her own children. During this time, Terri decided that she wanted to take her love of fitness to the next level and begin bodybuilding. Her hobby turned into more of an obsession, and she really wanted to compete in a competition for women over 35. Kaine said that during this time, his once patient and sweet girlfriend became snappy and short-tempered. He also alleged that she was consuming over-the-counter stimulants, working out twice a day, and not eating very much, losing over 60 pounds in just 3 months. When she finally competed in the bodybuilding competition, she ended up placing 4th. After experiencing what a competition was really like, Terri decided that it wasn't really the life for her, and she ended up losing interest in bodybuilding. It then seemed like Terri became a little lost, not having a stable teaching job and now not having any competition to work toward, and she started having some depression and began drinking alcohol behind Kaine's back. When he saw bottles of alcohol or signs that she was drinking, she said that she was only doing it to help her sleep, and made it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal. However, in 2005, she was pulled over while driving and given a breathalyzer test, where she blew over the legal limit. Her son James was also in the car. She pled guilty to reckless endangerment and had to complete a diversion program. Kaine decided not to tell Desiree about this because he knew it would only stress her out and just fuel her hatred that she had of Terri. Plus, Terri seemed to improve after she decided to quit drinking. Now that she was no longer on any of the stimulants or alcohol, Terri became her old self again, and they decided to put the DUI incident behind them. The family moved forward, taking several trips together to places like Disney World, Israel, the aquarium, and the beach, and by all accounts, they were all really happy. When Desiree returned back from Canada, she was said to be in much better health and ready to take her boys back full time. However, neither father was ready to relinquish their full custody back to her so quickly. Desiree was now in severe debt due to her medical issues, and she had to move back in with her parents, who lived over 4 hours away from Kaine and Kyron in a city called Medford. She has stated that it was her understanding in their agreement that when she returned, she would get full custody back, but that she felt like she was tricked by both of her exes, who were now trying to limit her amount of time with her sons. Desiree has said that she tried her best with the courts to get back full custody of Kyron and her other son, but was unsuccessful in doing so. Although she was unable to see her sons as often as she liked, she still remained as active in their lives as possible. She would usually get her sons every other weekend, and even though Desiree's oldest son was living with his father, Terri would drive both him and Kyron to meet Desiree halfway for her on weekends. Terri was said to be really adamant about keeping the blended family close, and always wanted to make sure that Kyron got to spend time with his older half-brother as much as possible, even though she wasn't required to do any of that. It was always Desiree's plan to eventually move back to Portland to be closer to her boys, but while living in Medford, she ended up meeting a detective named Tony Young. Desiree and Tony got married in a small civil ceremony and ultimately decided to stay in Medford, where Tony's job was. In 2007, Kaine and Terri decided to buy a new house in Portland on a secluded wooded property. Their new home gave James and Kyron a lot of room to play and grow. 3 months later, Kaine and Terri got married during a small ceremony in Hawaii. Their blended family would grow even bigger when Kaine and Terri got pregnant and had a little girl named Kiera Ariel in December of 2008. Terri was constantly posting pictures of all of the children, and it was clear that she was the one who was present during all of their extracurricular activities. She posted photos of Kyron's soccer games, Kiera doing all the cute baby things, and it seemed like they were all happy again. However, during this time, Terri was dealing with postpartum depression, and Kaine said that she started acting the way that she did when she was on those workout stimulants, on edge and impatient. He said she would become really upset when Kiera wouldn't go to sleep, and over the months, it just got worse and worse. When Terri was able to return to the gym again, she would tell her friends, specifically one close friend named Dee Dee Spitzer, that Kaine had been criticizing her for her weight gain after the baby. She also told Dee Dee that Kaine was extremely controlling over their money, especially since they didn't have a joint bank account. Kaine apparently wanted Terri to check with him before spending any money out of his account. But at this point, Terri had been unemployed for almost 2 years and was needing to use his money more and more often, and for things primarily for the children. Dee Dee also has said that Kaine would expect Terri to do an unmanageable amount of housework if he was ever away on business. She was expected to keep the inside of their house clean and tend to their property, which was several acres. He had even bought her a John Deere tractor for her to upkeep the yard and would make these lists of things for her to do, such as clean the gutters, mow the lawn, wash the windows, etc., all while caring for baby Kiera and James and Kyron when they weren't in school. James would help her with the yard work sometimes, but she ultimately decided to hire a landscaper using her own money because she knew that Kaine would get mad at her if he knew that she was paying someone else to do the yard work. Dee Dee had even said that on one occasion, Terri would be so overwhelmed that she would hire someone to help clean the house as well. There was even a point that Terri thought that Kaine may have been cheating on her during this time, but people close to the family said that she could have just been being paranoid after he made some comments regarding her weight gain. Even with all of the chaos of a blended family, going back and forth between parents and having a new baby sister, Kyron was said to be well-adjusted and a happy little boy, even though he was a little bit shy. However, Desiree has said that around 2008 and 2009, Kyron started to get really upset when he would have to go back to his dad and Terri's house, but Kaine said the same thing about him having to go back to his mom's house. She also had said that Kyron started wetting the bed again during this time frame. But Terri's son James said that Kyron had always had that issue and had always had plastic sheets for bedwetting, so this wasn't new behavior. Terri was noticing some strange behavior during this time as well, even thinking that he may have had some form of epilepsy or seizures. She said that there were several occasions where Kyron would just walk to another room and would stare into space. He would forget where he was or what he was doing and would just space out in the middle of conversations. She said he had wandered off a few times at school, away from his teacher, and she had been planning on taking him to a doctor's appointment soon to see if anything was going on or if he was just a little bit spacey. Kyron was said to be really creative and funny and far more intelligent than any other kids his age. He would catch on to a lot of adult humor that typically goes over kids' heads, and he was really good at science and math. He was even put in an advanced placement math class his second grade year. Kyron attended Skyline School, which had grades kindergarten through 8 and around 300 students in attendance. Toward the end of the school year, the students had been working on science fair projects, where they would do research on a chosen topic, create a poster board, and a presentation for their research, and then enter everything into this contest. Kyron was really excited for the science fair, and Terri had helped him a lot with his research and his presentation for the topic that he chose, which was the red-eyed tree frog. On June 3rd, the students were to turn in their science projects so that they could present their posters to the class and get their grade the day before the actual science fair. Terri took Kyron to school in Kaine's white pickup truck because the poster wouldn't have fit in her smaller Ford Mustang, with Kiera in the back as well. Terri was a regular volunteer at the school, and the only other times that she would drive Kaine's truck there is when she would bring recycling to dispose of in the school's large recycling bin. So the next day on June 4th, 2010, it was the second to last Friday before summer break. It was set to be a really fun day for the students because not only was it the science fair that morning, but it was also the school talent show later that afternoon. Skyline School had a large sign out front of the school that week, welcoming parents to come for an open house to view the science fair and the talent show. Terri, Kyron, and 18-month-old Kiera arrived at Skyline School at around 8 a.m. Kaine and Desiree were both at work at the time, so Kyron was excited to go around the science fair with Terri and see his project that was on display. The school was already full of parents who were entering in from all of the doors. Usually visitors would have to sign in and show ID, but due to so many parents and family members coming to see the projects, the school had decided that a sign-in sheet would be too difficult to keep up with. Kyron and Terri went to drop off his backpack and jacket in his math class, even though Kyron had a different homeroom for the majority of his other classes. Terri talked to his teacher for a minute before they headed off to the gym where all of the projects were on display. Terri took a photo of Kyron in front of his project, and a few photos of Kiera as well. Terri waved and said hi to some of the other members of the school PTA while walking around the fair with Kyron. Kyron then asked if they could go say hi to his old first grade teacher, so they walked together to do that. Next, it's been reported that the students were going to go to class and get into small groups with parent chaperones and with teachers to go view more of the fair. However, baby Kiera had an earache that day, so Terri decided that she would go ahead and leave, and that Kyron was fine getting into one of those chaperoned small groups at school. At around 8:45 that morning, Terri said that she and Kiera were at the steps that led outside to the school, and she watched Kyron make his way to class where they had left his book bag and coat. One of Kyron's friends would later say that he saw him in the hallway and that Kyron told him he was going to go look at a cool electricity project. Another friend said that he saw Kyron inside the fair looking at the project. However, when all of the students returned to class at 10 a.m., Kyron was marked as absent. Typically, if a student is marked absent, the parents get a call from the school notifying them. However, apparently, that system was down that day, and Kyron's parents never got a call from the school. After Terri left, she said that she headed to a local Fred Meyer grocery store to get some children's Tylenol for Kira's earache. At the store, there were signs about a children's Tylenol recall, and they were all out of any children's pain relief in general. Terri then went to a second Fred Meyer's, where she was able to find some Tylenol, and then she went to drop off some dry cleaning and pick up something from a Michael's craft store. Next, she decided to drive Kira around to help soothe her and help her fall asleep. Terri said she talked on the phone while driving around and doesn't really recall what exact roads she took because she was just mindlessly driving until Kira fell asleep. At around 11:39 a.m., Terri arrived at a 24-hour fitness, which had an attached daycare a part of it for parents who chose to work out. She dropped Kira off in the daycare and did a quick workout and talked to some of her friends, showing them photos from the science fair earlier in the day. She picked up Kira and left the gym at around 12:40 and made the 11-mile drive back home. When she got home, she uploaded the photos that she took to Facebook and sent an email to Kyron's teacher asking when she could pick up his project because she would need to use the truck again. At around 1:30 p.m., Kaine arrived home from work, and Terri fixed him something to eat before they would walk together to meet Kyron at the bus stop like they did every day at 3:30 p.m. When the bus pulled up to the stop, the bus driver looked confused and said that Kyron wasn't on the bus. The driver told them that they needed to call Skyline School, which they did immediately. The school secretary then informed them that Kyron had been marked as absent, and it became clear that Kyron was now missing. Terri asked the secretary to call the police while they loaded up Kira to make their way to the school. The secretary called the non-emergency number, notifying them about what was going on, and she also made a call to Kyron's mom, Desiree. When Kaine and Terri got to the school, none of the staff remembered seeing him after the science fair. Even though his jacket and backpack were left in his class, his teacher said that she marked him as absent because Terri had told her that she was taking him to a doctor's appointment that day. However, Terri said she never said that she was taking him that day, and that his appointment was for the following week. The doctor also confirmed that the appointment was for the very next week, not that week. So why would he have left his jacket and backpack if he was going to be leaving with Terri for the day? When the sheriff's office arrived at the school, a search began immediately for Kyron. Skyline School was surrounded by dense forest and treacherous terrain, and Terri worried that Kyron may have wandered away. In interviews, Desiree has said that Kyron was extremely shy and would never wander off, but the school had actually lost track of Kyron twice before. Once he was found with another student on the soccer field, and another time he had wandered and stayed in a bathroom for an extended period of time. So it actually wasn't out of the realm of possibility. The police became increasingly aware just how difficult this investigation was going to be, because the school didn't have any security cameras, and it was basically an open house free-for-all that day. The sign outside of the school advertising the science fair open house also could have attracted anyone to come in, and without a sign-in sheet, they had no idea where to even start. At 5:30 p.m., the school sent out a mass text message to all of the parents of Skyline School, letting them know that Kyron was missing. They encouraged anyone with any information to come forward. Due to it being a Friday, the detectives would have to wait the entire weekend to be able to question all of the students. Soon, Desiree and her husband Tony arrived at the school, which at that point was in complete chaos of searchers desperately trying to find Kyron before they lost daylight. Police and volunteer searchers continued looking through the forest, but there was no sign of Kyron. On Sunday, over 200 students' parents showed up to the school to answer any questions that they had with information about Kyron and to help with the search. The sheriff's office sent over 50 detectives to question the families and the school staff. Other volunteers helped pass out missing persons flyers and asked people to be on the lookout for Kyron, who had last been seen in black cargo pants, a black CSI shirt, and orange Skechers. School week, detectives stopped cars passing by the school to ask if they saw anything that Friday when Kyron went missing. They requested the help of the FBI because it started to become clear that Kyron hadn't just wandered off, or he would have been found by now, especially since they were using tracking dogs and over 1,300 searchers. Kyron's family had not yet made a statement to the public, but on June 9th, they decided to speak at a press conference. Terri, Kaine, Desiree, and Tony would be seen comforting each other, and they all had a look of disbelief, worry, and sadness on their faces.
Hello, my name is Tony Young, and I'm Kyron's stepfather. The family's asked me to speak on their behalf today. I would just like to say, Kyron, we miss you. We love you and we need you home right now. We're doing everything we can to work with law enforcement and the search and the rescue crews to make sure that you can get back to us as soon as possible. We want to say how much we appreciate the outpouring of love and support, prayer and thoughts as we wait for you. Your school friends and their families, the teachers, the staff at your school, and the community as a whole have shown how much impact one little boy's smile can have on a community. You mean everything to us, and until you come home, this family is not complete. Please, Kyron, keep up the hope. We believe in you, and we know you will be back with us soon. I'd like to now introduce Kyron's father, Kyron Horman.
Hi, I'm Kaine. I'm Kyron's father. We want to thank the community, the parents, the children, bus drivers, and all of those who are being interviewed multiple times to help find Kyron. Thank you. We as the family know how difficult and stressful this is, but your memories and statements can help us find Kyron. We will never be able to thank you enough for that help. Finally, we would like to thank the media. If it was not for you showing Kyron on every newscast, printing his story in the papers, his face would not be known to everyone. People from around the nation have seen his picture. This helps tremendously. Please help us bring Kyron home.
On June 13th, the police would finally transition the case into a criminal investigation. As with most missing children, the family was the first people that the detectives wanted to rule out as possible suspects. All of Kyron's parents had a solid alibi, besides Terri, who had time unaccounted for while she was driving baby Kiara around. They were able to determine that she was at that grocery store and the gym, and this was based on surveillance footage and receipts. In all of the footage, it was just Terri and Kiara. Even though technically she would have had time to do something with Kyron in the hours after she left the school, she arrived at the store almost immediately after she left, and Kyron wasn't with her. So either she left him in the car while she was in the store, which is unlikely, or she disposed of him in the few minutes it took to get from the school to the store, which also seemed unlikely. However, Desiree started to become increasingly suspicious of Terri. The sheriff's office asked the parents to take polygraph tests, and they all agreed. Everyone passed the polygraphs, except for Terri, who was told by police that she had failed 2 times. Although it would be shown later that people who have difficulty hearing are more likely to struggle with polygraph exams, and Terri said that she wasn't able to hear most of the questions, and the questions that she failed were open-ended ones. During their investigation, the detectives asked Terri if she knew of anyone suspicious that had been to her house recently. She said that she had hired a landscaper to help with the yard work, and that the landscaper had once tried to come on to her, and that she was even afraid he was going to assault her. Sounds a little like Letitia Stout, doesn't it? She said that she decided not to tell her husband about this, though, because he would have become angry that she was spending money on help with the yard work. The police brought in the landscaper for questioning, and asked him what he knew about Terri. The landscaper allegedly told police that Terri had actually offered to pay him to kill Kaine because he was being harmful toward her and she wanted a way out, which I have to say is a very interesting technique or alibi or whatever you're trying to do here. If you're trying to say that the landscaper was shady and possibly responsible for this little boy missing, clearly you would assume that the detectives would want to speak with him. So if you had in fact hired a hit on your husband and tried to solicit this landscaper to execute that hit, don't you think he would tell the detectives that when being questioned? It seems like you would get caught up in your lies, surely. So the detectives told Kaine all of this, and he immediately filed for divorce and got a restraining order against Terri. It was at this time that he started to believe that she may have had something to do with the disappearance of their son. The police asked the landscaper to help them do a sting operation, in which he would wear a wire to Terry's home and ask her for the $10,000 that she had promised him. However, when he showed up to her house, she said she had no idea what he was talking about, and she called the police. If she had actually asked him to kill her husband, why would she call the police and bring more attention to the situation? In family court, her husband cited that she was under investigation for murder for hire and that he should have full custody of their daughter, even though it had never been proven that this actually did happen. However, the judge granted him full custody of Kiera. Terri's lawyer asked that the landscaper come testify at the custody hearing, since his allegations were what were being used to have her daughter taken away. However, the landscaper ended up recanting his statements, and it was said that the police told him that if he didn't cooperate, they would have his family deported. Terri also believed he originally said this because he was angry at her for denying his advances toward her. Regardless, she was never arrested or proven to have hired this man to kill Kaine, but she has still not been able to see Kiera. After Kaine moved out of their home, one of Terri's friends from the gym, named Dee Dee, moved in with her, and moved in to help support her and really show her friendship to her. Even though she and Terri were not best friends, the police thought that this was sketchy, and that Terri could have possibly asked Dee Dee to help her get rid of Kyron. The police went to Dee Dee's job at a local lavender farm, and her boss said that during lunchtime, they actually couldn't find where she was that day. However, Dee Dee's car never left the property, and she said that she was just far out in the field, which is why she didn't hear when the boss called her in for lunch. Also, it's been shown that the times Dee Dee couldn't be located in the field and the times that Terri was driving Kiera around unaccounted for didn't match up. Terri has never been formally named a suspect or person of interest in Kyron's disappearance, but Desiree is adamant that Terri knows what happened to him.
I would like to read something, well, say something. I have something to say to Terri. I want to let you all know that law enforcement is not aware of what I'm about to say. They did not help me format or review this statement in any way. Terri, I feel like you are at a crossroads in your life. Our lives present moments like these, and we aren't always going to like what life gives us. We don't have much choice in that, but what we do have a choice in is what we do at these moments. I don't doubt that the situation makes you feel like you don't have a choice, but you do, and you always have. What you are going to be remembered for is what you do with these choices and how you handle it. How do you want to be remembered? This is not going to get any easier for you. The police will not stop until they find Kyron. You will go to jail, and whoever has been helping you will either have to talk or they will go to jail. I believe that you really want to make the right choice and bring Kyron home. Thank you.
Many people have tried to come up with a motive, and Desiree believes that Kaine could have been cheating on Terri, and it was a way for her to get back at him.
All of your sins are going to come back, and here we are in this situation.
Desiree and Kaine went on the Dr. Phil show, which, as usual, showed a completely biased point of view of the case and tried to paint Terri in the worst light possible. Dr. Phil brought up the fact that Terri was sexting with one of Kaine's best friends just weeks after Kyron went missing, which she said was in retaliation for him doing the same thing. She said she wanted him to feel what she felt when he was talking to other women after he moved out of their home. Dr. Phil also brought up the fact that Terri went to the gym days after Kyron went missing and said that this was strange behavior for someone who had a missing child, but she pointed out that Kaine was also with her at the gym, but nobody ever asks him about this. It's also been pointed out that only a few weeks after Kyron's disappearance, Desiree and her husband Tony had an elaborate vow renewal ceremony, but no one had questioned them for doing those things while Kyron was missing. Many people believe that Desiree hates Terri so much that she will do anything to prove that she was involved in Kyron's disappearance, even if she wasn't involved. The school has been heavily scrutinized for their lack of security that day, and basically letting any and everyone into the school. Any person who saw that sign outside would have known about the science fair, and could have taken it as an opportunity to come and lure a child away. One witness also stated that they heard a man ask Kyron's teacher if he could borrow a student to unload some things from his car, and that the teacher said yes. So is it possible that this was Kyron? It's also been proven that 2 of the maintenance workers at Skyline School had suspicious backgrounds, one even writing inappropriate sexual poems about teenage boys. There were also thousands of offenders on the registry in that area at the time, and 3 of them have still been unaccounted for during the day of his disappearance. While there are plenty of witnesses that say they saw Kyron leave with someone or that they saw him in school after Terri left, there are witnesses that claim to have seen Kyron leave with Terri as well. Is it possible that Terri took Kyron and did lie about a doctor's appointment and did something to him with Kiera in the car? Yes, but it's also possible that someone came to the school who had bad intentions and lured Kyron away. I don't see a motive for Terri to hurt Kyron when it's obvious that she loved him and raised him as her own. However, we also saw in the Letitia Stout trial and case with Gannon Stout, her stepson, that she hated him. Was there underlying resentment and hatred toward Kyron? There have been blogs online that have gone through court documents from Kaine and Desiree's custody agreements, and never in the documents did it say that she would get her children back full-time, or that she tried to get her children back when she returned from Canada. So people also believe that she wasn't actually in Canada for medical reasons, and that was just an excuse for a break from her children. There are people who think that she was an uninvolved parent who now wants to seem more involved than she was, and to make it look like Terri is an evil person who hated her son all along. She has said in the media that police showed her emails of Terri saying that she hated Kyron. However, no one else has seen or produced those emails. But it is possible the police are keeping that, along with other evidence, close to entire YouTube channels that are dedicated to bringing awareness to Kyron Horman's case. And it's also been said that in the Oregon area, there is a high number of human smugglings. James, Terri's older son, said in a recent interview that the FBI has started to look for Kyron in other countries, where there were supposed sightings of him. This to me doesn't sound like they believe Kyron is dead, even though it's been over 13 years now since Kyron went missing, and there is still little to no evidence about where he could have gone. I think the miscommunication and lack of security at the school that day played a massive role in the delay of the investigation. And had there been cameras, Kyron could have probably been brought home relatively quickly. One more strange piece of information that I learned while researching this case is that a highly respected man in the search and rescue field named Harry Oakes attempted to work on this case. He asked if he could let his dogs sniff Kaine's property, but Kaine said no. Harry Oakes and his dogs have found hundreds of missing people and helped in police investigations when their trained dogs were unable to locate the person. So you would think that the parent of a missing child would take any help from anywhere they could. However, Harry decided to go with his team and search dogs around the perimeter of Kaine's property anyway, and the search dogs actually started sniffing and alerting toward his land. Harry said that his dogs only alert if there is a dead body in the vicinity, and that these particular dogs have helped in hundreds of cases. He's not saying that it's Kyron, but does say that there is certainly a body somewhere on that property. He also said that during his search of the perimeter, he strangely found a pentagram or something that resembles some kind of devil worship. I'm not sure how that pertains to this case, but it is still interesting to note. Desiree and her followers on Facebook often incite others to stalk and harass Terri, trying to get her to share information that she says she doesn't have.
I don't know that we'll get to bring him home. And I don't want us to stay focused on that. I want us to be able to, no matter what the answer is, hold Terri accountable.
My heart breaks and goes out to Desiree and Kaine because they have lost a child in all of this. However, my heart also goes out to Terri, who helped raise Kyron as well, and who there is no proof whatsoever had anything to do with his disappearance. I think that the detectives only really pursued Terri as a possible suspect, and when they couldn't find any proof, they really didn't know what to do or where to go from there. It's also been reported that the detectives didn't want to utilize the FBI profile that they had created after the disappearance because the person didn't resemble Terri, but rather a male, probably in his 40s. To this day, Kaine and Terri both believe that Kyron is out there somewhere. Heartbreakingly, James said that Kaine still buys things for Kyron every year for when he comes home. While it's definitely possible that Terri had something to do with Kyron's disappearance, I think it's also possible that she didn't, and that maybe everyone should start considering other possibilities. At this point, it really can't hurt. There's just so much time being lost. I just hope that we get some answers about what happened to Kyron before his case goes fully cold, because his family really needs closure, at the very least, to be able to continue on with their lives. If you've heard about this case, I'm curious to know what you think. Do you think that Terri had something to do with his disappearance? Or could someone have taken advantage of the school being open to everyone? Here is an age progression photo of Kyron and what he would look like today. Police are still taking tips of any information or possible sightings, so if you think you have any information, even something you think is small or insignificant, please call the tip line so that we can bring Kyron home, or at least help his family find peace. This case is a really interesting one. I had first covered it on my channel back in 2020, but it was when I was doing the 10-minute case recap, so I really just barely scratched the surface. But it's an interesting one, because when you research it and when you hear the information, part of you immediately is pulled towards Terri possibly being responsible. Then you see that things aren't necessarily adding up with the dad. So not that he's responsible, but is he hiding a secret? Is he covering for someone? Could there have been an accident between the siblings? It's a very interesting one, so I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. So please leave them in the comments below and let me know who you think may have been responsible, if any, of these family members. And what would the motive have been? All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in with me today. I appreciate you joining me. Please don't forget to take a quick second, hit that subscribe button. Also, show support for the channel, hit the thumbs up. It helps the algorithm, and I appreciate it so much. All right, guys, thanks again. And until the next case, stay safe.